Hello everybody. If you want to read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 494, The Accidental Detective. Intermediate. Norman wasn't exactly detective material. He was a retired librarian who enjoyed crossword puzzles, toast with marmalade, and watching documentaries about overly dramatic birds. But somehow, Norman had earned the title of the Accidental Detective in his quiet little town. It all started one damp Tuesday when Norman's neighbour, Mrs. Patel, knocked on his door in a state of mild panic. "My cat, Mr. Whiskerson, has vanished," she exclaimed, waving a blurry photo of a rather disgruntled-looking feline. Norman frowned. "Cats tend to vanish," he said wisely, "then reappear when they deem us worthy again." But Mrs. Patel was convinced something was amiss, and so Norman took it upon himself to investigate, armed with nothing but his impeccable reasoning skills and a pocket full of Werther's originals. Over the next few days, Norman questioned the usual suspects: the postman, the teenager on the bicycle who was always loitering mysteriously, and even his own reflection, while he pondered deeply over a cup of tea. Clues were scarce until Norman noticed a peculiar pattern. Every morning at precisely 7:42 a.m, a trail of cat biscuits led from Mrs. Patel's doorstep towards the house of Mr. Goodman, a retired magician. Norman knocked on Mr. Goodman's door, only to be greeted by a suspiciously plump cat that looked alarmingly like Mr. Whiskerson, except now wearing a tiny bow tie. "I can explain," Mr. Goodman said before Norman had even spoken. Turns out Mr. Whiskerson had become enthralled by Mr. Goodman's disappearing acts. It started with food, tricks, then escalated to full-fledged magic shows in the kitchen. Mr. Whiskerson had voluntarily relocated, drawn by the glamour of the magician's lifestyle. After much negotiation, and one dramatic magic trick involving a hat, Mr. Whiskerson agreed to return home, on the condition that he would be allowed weekly visits to Mr. Goodman for private magic lessons. From that day forth, Norman became the town's go-to detective, investigating lost umbrellas, mysterious garden gnome disappearances, and even the baffling case of the missing biscuits, which Norman reluctantly admitted had all been eaten by him. One chilly autumn morning, Norman found himself caught up in yet another mystery. His neighbour, Mr. Thomas, had lost his prized teapot, a supposedly indestructible family heirloom. After an elaborate search, which involved digging through an unreasonable number of sock drawers, Norman found the teapot nestled in a flower bed outside the bakery. It turned out that Mr. Thomas's overly enthusiastic dog, Rufus, had buried it there in an attempt to hide it from the mailman. Despite his lack of official detective training, Norman had somehow become indispensable to the town. His investigations had led to better organised sock drawers, fewer lost umbrellas, and the occasional dramatic rescue of missing tea biscuits. And as for Mr. Whiskerson, his magic career was going remarkably well. He had even learned how to vanish on command, though much to Mrs. Patel's dismay, he still hadn't learned how to reappear. Just as Norman thought his detective career was winding down, a new case landed on his doorstep. Literally. One morning he found a mysterious package outside his flat, addressed only to the Accidental Detective. Inside was a single white glove and a note: "Find the other." Norman sighed, took a sip of his tea, and got to work. Vocabulary notes: disgruntled, adjective. Definition: unhappy, annoyed or dissatisfied, often due to something unfair or frustrating. Example: Mrs. Patel waved a blurry photo of a rather disgruntled-looking feline. Similar words: irritated, frustrated, annoyed, displeased, dissatisfied. Extra example: the disgruntled customer complained about the long wait at the cafe. Peculiar, adjective. Definition: strange, unusual, or slightly odd in a way that catches attention. Example, Norman noticed a peculiar pattern. Similar words, strange, odd, weird, bizarre, unusual. Extra example, the old house had a peculiar smell that nobody could quite identify. Suspicious, adjective, definition, feeling doubt or mistrust or appearing to be involved in something wrong. Example, he was greeted by a suspiciously plump cat. Similar words, doubtful, wary, mistrustful, dubious, questionable. Extra example, she gave her co-worker a suspicious look when she noticed him taking extra biscuits from the tin. Negotiation, noun. Definition, a discussion between people to reach an agreement. Example, after much negotiation, Mr. Whiskerson agreed to return home. Similar words, bargaining, discussion, compromise, mediation. Extra example, the two countries entered negotiation to resolve their trade dispute. Indispensable, adjective, definition, absolutely necessary or extremely useful. Example, Norman had somehow become indispensable to the town. Similar words, essential, vital, crucial, necessary, fundamental. Extra example, good communication skills are indispensable in a leadership role. Baffling, adjective, definition, confusing or puzzling in a way that is difficult to understand. Example, the baffling case of the missing biscuits. Similar words, perplexing, puzzling, mystifying, bewildering, confounding. Extra example, the magician's trick was so baffling that even the experts couldn't explain it. Enthralled, verb, definition, captivated or completely fascinated by something. Example, Mr. Whiskerson had become enthralled by Mr. Goodman's disappearing acts. Similar words, fascinated, mesmerized, captivated, spellbound, absorbed. Extra example, the children were enthralled by the storyteller's dramatic performance. Glamour, noun, definition, a feeling or appearance of excitement, luxury or attraction. Example, drawn by the glamour of the magician's lifestyle. Similar words, elegance, charm, allure, fascination, enchantment. Extra example, the glamour of Hollywood attracts aspiring actors from all over the world. Vanish, verb, definition, to disappear suddenly and completely. Example, he had even learned how to vanish on command. Similar words, disappear, evaporate, fade, dissolve, melt away. Extra example, the footprints vanished before they could follow the trail further. Mysterious, adjective, definition, difficult to understand or explain, full of secrets. Example, a new case landed on his doorstep, literally. Similar words, cryptic, enigmatic, puzzling, secretive, intriguing. Extra example, the old book contained a mysterious map that led to an unknown location. Story written by Copilot through Bing.com. Image created by Copilot AI. To read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you.
Hello, this is Steve. If you enjoyed the story, please would you take the time to leave a meaningful comment and click on the like icon. If you want to know when the next story has been uploaded, please click on the notify bell icon to be notified. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tell your English learning friends so they can benefit too. Thank you.